Hello. Okay, hopefully you have identified some barriers that are limiting you in the classroom. We have found that the barriers that we hear over and over are the barriers of time and the barriers of resources. So we're going to kind of talk through how we identified those barriers and what that meant for us moving forward. So we know that time really is a factor because sometimes we don't have control over how we schedule our day. We actually almost never have time over how we schedule our day. We have state and federal mandates that require us to spend a certain amount of minutes in certain areas. We have new regulations on MTSS. We've got new recess mandates. We've got ELL federal laws that we need to take into consideration. And we have a very high focus on math and ELA instruction. And that kind of takes priority over everything else. Well, that is not a new barrier for anyone. In fact, we found some research that the U.S. Department of Education did. They did from the year 1987 to 2011. They produced surveys 7 times over those years where they're collecting information on schools across the United States. And as you can see on this pie chart, we've got science and social studies have the smallest percentage of the pie. So only about 10% of the day is focused on those content areas, with the larger focus on ELA and math. So this is a barrier that everybody is facing. The other barrier is that resources, the lack of resources. We did a curriculum adoption, I believe 2006 or 2007, that we have resources sitting in our classrooms that maybe weren't the right fit for us. And that means when we do these big adoptions, it's a one size fits all kind of a deal. And sometimes the standards are not correctly aligned. So in our case, the next generation science standards were not they were the focus because we based our research on creating the Arizona standards on the framework of science education, which is the same framework that NGSS was kind of based on. But when we look at overall resources, they are mostly aligned to the next generation science standards. And that becomes a problem for us because although the content is the same overall, the grade levels where those content pieces are happening looks different in Arizona. The same with social studies. And so when we're really looking at an intentional resource adoption and having the right resources, if we were to go down one path, we might be stifling the learning of students, or we might not be giving them the right resources that they need at the right time. And so we really need to think about how are we going to overcome this? Because with any curriculum adoption that we were to move forward on, we would have to have customization happen. So something that is taught in kindergarten in the textbook might actually be taught in second grade in an Arizona standard, or vice versa. So because of that, we've tried to think outside the box. And how do we respond to these shifts? Well, we're looking at our instructional goal, which is the triple Venn diagram in the lower right corner. And when we're really looking at this, we are thinking we want to live in the intersection, right? We want to live in a balanced place where we're thinking of content, authentic learning, and inquiry. Well, what a wonderful way to do this than to integrate some of our content areas. And we found a nice balance with science and social science. And we found a way to have this all happen in a balanced approach. So our idea of living in this intersection through integration is so powerful and so exciting because at the end of the day, we had a choice. We could continue doing what we're doing and having a lower priority in science and social science, or we could tackle the barriers and try this through integration and really utilizing our time in a better fashion and helping teachers utilize their time. Because at the end of the day, everybody is feeling like their plate is completely full and overwhelmed. But we're trying to figure out a way, how can we shift some of those pieces so that everything lives on the plate and we're repackaging our plate? We are not adding more to our plate, but we are looking at a way of working smarter, not harder. So where are we in this process? We started with instructional shifts. So we started with the framework, so we really started drilling down with that. We ran across a guy through NSTA from an Illinois school who kind of started down this pathway, and we were really motivated with this concept and idea, and we really started digging into some research and some different methods and looking at integration in a different light. Then we gathered some teacher leaders. So we've got 3 from every school in different grade bands. So a K2, actually I think it was K1, 2, 3, and 4, 6. Those were our 3 grade bands, and we had one person from each grade band from each school come together, and we started talking about our shift in how instruction is going to look like in the science and the social studies classroom. What is it going to look like? It's very inquiry driven, and we kind of ran some teachers through some instructional methods. We started looking at the standards and what those looked like after they were adopted. Then we looked at curriculum mapping and lesson creation, and we decided, how are we going to do this? How are we going to get this done? And we pulled teachers in again. Teachers have been an integral part of this process. Having the feedback and the input from teachers has really helped steer the course and keep us on the right path. And we're going to continue to be asking for that support and help from teachers so that everybody is on the same page and that we're seeing things through different lenses and helping keep each other accountable. The last piece then that I had spoken about just a moment ago is the intentional resource adoption. We have been, as we're creating these units, we are finding the resources and the materials that teachers need and then finding a way to get them to everyone. And so we will, as we continue through this process, we will continue to adopt resources that we need as we need them, rather than purchasing a one-size-fits-all curriculum that most likely will end up gathering dust in your classroom corner because you're thinking, you know what, this doesn't really teach the standards, this isn't exactly what my teachers need. And sometimes it doesn't. Textbook companies often have a blanket purpose, and they have different states that they need to think about and different needs of classrooms. For our junior high piece, we actually have teachers that have that are not adopting a curriculum, a resource yet, because what they need isn't out there. It has not yet been created because it has been so recent since we have adopted a new standard. It's just October of 2018. So in order to make it relevant, we want to be adopting and purchasing the correct things that you all need. So let's take a look at these maps. So your principal may or may not have sent this on to you, but we published these on May 15th, and we have a roadmap, if you will. So I'm going to show you 2 different types of roadmaps. This is for a primary roadmap, and our kindergarten teachers are probably able to look at this and let you know there is a primary color lesson in here. So the blue are standalone social studies, social science. They are, the standards in these units are only social science. The yellow is only science, and the green units are integrated units. So yellow and blue make green, which was how the color scheme was designed for this roadmap. But as you can see, there are some standalone units, and that is because we did not want to force science and social studies together where it did not fit. So we wanted it to be authentic and organic, and we did not want to have teachers feeling like this makes no sense, this is confusing, because there are times when science and social studies do not live in the same world, and that's okay, and that's what this map is showing. At the bottom, we've got a suggested time, the amounts of time on the bottom, and those are different for every unit. And again, as we collect feedback, we'll be able to refine some of this. As you guys are working through these units, you're going to be able to tell us what worked and what didn't work. I'm going to now show you a 5th grade sample. It's the same concept, the same idea, but there are some differences that I wanted to point out. One of those is at 4th quarter. If you are a tested content area, so 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, your 4th quarter is 2 weeks shorter. It's 7 weeks. We took into account that you will be working on testing, and that takes away from your instructional days. So we put that piece into play for you. Also, in 5th grade, for instance, in quarter 1, we have a unit 1 and unit 2. These are big units, and they can be taught concurrently, so they can be taught at the same time. We found that oftentimes in 5th and 6th grade, classrooms were departmentalized or platooned, and so in that case, the science and the social studies can be taught separately, but at the same time, if needed. It really all depends on how your classroom minutes are set aside. If you have time in your day for science and social studies, you could teach at the same time. If you have time for only one or the other, you and your teams can figure out what order you would like to teach those standalone units in. what we have published for you is a standalone unit, the first integrated unit for all grade levels. So in 5th grade, that unit isn't until 2nd quarter. So you have quarter 1 of standalone units that you can work through, and then you won't begin your integrated unit until quarter 2. And so that's just for all grade levels. The first integrated unit, or the first green unit on your roadmap, is going to be the one that you have access to at the beginning of the school year. And then we will systematically roll out quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, one integrated unit for the remaining quarters, and then we'll start all over again for year 2. And we will continue until all units have been created for all grade levels. Thank you so much.